Right, so I think we've probably got the majority of everyone in now. So I'll just say a huge good morning to everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. This is our second in a sort of pair of webinars that we've been giving, just to sort of highlight the sort of the growth opportunities in Newcastle and the wider sort of northeast of England region. It's been a really, really fun experience, actually. We're all getting used to obviously doing everything virtually. So hopefully we won't have any technical issues, but of course it won't be a proper webinar if we don't have something. So the purpose today is to talk about Newcastle as a sort of location for key skills. So over the past few years, we've seen a sort of a great amount of success from the city in being able to attract and to grow some really brilliant tech and digital businesses. We've developed some really niche areas, particularly around things like enterprise software, around games, around health technology, around data, and we're really, really pleased to see that, you know, that is continuing. Particularly at the moment, it's obviously been a very difficult time for cities across the globe. And actually, you know, we are facing, you know, rises in unemployment. You know, some sectors are really, really struggling due to the current pandemic. But what is very comforting to see is that we are seeing a number of resilient sectors, companies that are continuing to do really, really well to build on opportunities that the pandemic may have created, but also to really sort of add to the, you know, the success of the city through being able to attract more talented staff members. People have managed to, you know, revert to working from home and to use different technologies to work. Obviously, the sectors that we're going to be talking about today probably had a bit of a head start on some of the rest of us. So we're gonna invite some of our panelists to say a few words about each of themselves and their businesses and their experiences in Newcastle. Unfortunately, we did have a fourth panelist in Sue Yoxall from Makodo, a company, a sort of a gaming platform company that is based out of London, but that I worked with back in 2015 to actually locate a second office up in Newcastle. It was a really, really great project to work on, and Sue's become quite a good friend of mine now. Unfortunately, she's pulled something in her spine, so she's in sort of too much pain to be able to join us, unfortunately, today. She promises me that it isn't due to staying up all night to watch the election results come in. But certainly I can follow up with some more information from Sue. So what we do have is three excellent panelists joining us today. And so I will, without further ado, I will ask them to come off mute and to put their videos on. And so we have Therese Liddell, who is from NRG, the recruitment agency that we all know and love in the city and the wider region. And Therese and I have worked on countless projects together, and, you know, comes with an absolute wealth of experience, particularly, you know, when we're talking about the skills and labour market in the northeast of England. We also have Richard from Codification, a brilliant company based out of Newcastle. Richard's joining us today from beautiful Northumberland. We were joking this morning that unfortunately we should have had a nice backdrop behind us, because it really is a glorious day here in the northeast today. And we wish we should have shown it off to you, but we'll bombard you with imagery afterwards if anyone's interested. And then last but certainly not least is another good friend of mine, Giselle, from the global French games company Ubisoft, who has two very large bases in the city of Newcastle. So sorry if I've stolen any of your thunder, or certainly if I've said anything incorrect, please do correct me. But Therese, if I can ask you to start just giving a sort of a few sort of points on who you are and what you've been doing.
Sure. Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm Therese. Business is Northern Recruitment Group, and our sub-business from that is a business called Green Bean, which is an RPO business, which has had particular interest during this pandemic in the kind of skill sets that we have been able to support in Newcastle and in the wider Northeast. And I think I would just echo everything you've talked about there, Jen, in terms of the opportunities in the city and in the wider region, because there have been some terrific resilience with even with traditional businesses, I would say, in terms of the skill sets that they've moved to. So whilst it's been tough, and nobody will pretend it has not been tough, there's some great opportunities in the region at the minute for Indigenous businesses who've been here a long time and who are transitioning. We're all keeping our eye and our fingers crossed on the hospitality and tourism sectors and retail, which have been incredibly badly hit. But again, there's still resilience in those sectors that we're seeing, and particularly in the tech sector, where we're doing a lot of work. As you would expect, there's still very high demand and great skills available in that space. And we're continuing working on inward investor streams too. So we're very optimistic on that side. Yeah,
we've got a couple of top secret projects at the moment, haven't we?
Absolutely.
We won't any more about that. Richard, over to you.
Yeah, so we've established in Newcastle. We're a relatively new startup, so we've only been going a couple of years. So, you know, we're doubling the team every 6 months, which is a very nice feeling. And despite the fact that we're distributed, so we were distributed team before COVID, but we've actually managed to hire 6 computer science graduates from the 2 Newcastle universities who embedded in the team. That's all post-COVID since August. So we've been very, very impressed with that. The skills that they come out of the university with is very relevant to the work that we do. So especially the master's degree from the two Newcastle universities are very aligned with the work that's relevant in our customer base who are trying to do digital transformations. So despite that we could hire anywhere, and it's completely open field at the moment because of the remote working paradigm, but still we've chosen to build the team almost exclusively with hires in Newcastle. And also we've benefited a lot from the amount of other small and medium-sized businesses that are here who are very easy to do business with. So again, despite the fact that technically we could do business anywhere, and we have clients all across Europe, most of our clients are still clustered in the region, and new customers are mostly clustering in the region, and that's just because of the echo chamber effect, the size of the network, the amount of medium and small businesses who know each other. And yeah, on the talent side, the computer science graduates are just top notch. We do speak to engineers all over Europe, as I say, from many different universities, and the skill level is just extremely high. The standard is extremely high. So we're really reaping the benefits of that. And yeah, it doesn't look any sign of slowing down. Certainly in our sector, things are probably speeding up. So yeah, it's great to see the number of tech businesses now in the hub in Newcastle.
Brilliant, that's great to hear. Thanks, Richard. And finally, Giselle, who for some needs no introduction, you could give us a little bit of a brief on. That'd be great.
Hi, good morning. I am Giselle Stewart. I'm currently the Director of Corporate Affairs in the UK with Ubisoft. And we have been in Northeast for quite some time. In fact, Reflections as a games development studio started in the Northeast back in 1984. So that gives you some sense of the longevity of the hub for games development in the Northeast. Newcastle has always been the home for Reflections. It has grown from a handful of people in about 1995 to over 250 people based in Gosforth today. We are continuing to grow, continuing to recruit there. It is a really resilient sector. We're extremely fortunate. Interest from graduates is strong, but also interest from experience is strong. And it won't surprise you to know that COVID has changed the nature of recruitment. And we're actually finding, although we've always had interest from around the world, the interest is truly global now because people can work from anywhere. We've flexed our models about working from home due to current requirements, but also projecting the future of work and what will that look like. Some people will work from home on a very long-term basis. Some people will work from home 2 days a week, the rest of the time in the office. We did also invest in another business. Reflections became part of the Ubisoft stable in 2006, I've got to say. And that really sort of anchored a big name here for Newcastle, which then had the inward investment attraction for do we further our business and grow further in Newcastle. So about 6 years ago, we landed a new business for Ubisoft, which was about the key component of how we communicate with our customers through Europe, Middle East, Africa, and looked at 4 sites across Europe, narrowed it down to the UK, 4 sites in the UK, and we felt that Newcastle would be the right home for us. And this was in no small part due to the level of support offered by NGI. The Let's Grow Fund played a part. But actually what we've really seen is the wealth of talent. So although 65% of the team there come from Europe and rest of the world, we have had no significant recruitment difficulties. I think 1 or 2 countries, 1 or 2 territories might have been harder to tackle than others, but now we have that stream going, it's much easier. And our most recent finding there is that business has grown from more of a customer support business to now a digital community management business. It's our centre of expertise for online safety, keeping our players safe online, which we hope to grow with the support of local universities and how we up the expertise there. So together, our strength in Newcastle is over 500 people, and we are looking to grow.
Fantastic. No, really great story, and something that we've been really pleased to kind of work quite closely with you on. I suppose the first question for you all is around talent retention. So we always have had quite strong retention of skills in the region. In fact, if I remember some conversations a few years ago where actually attrition levels were so low for some companies that it was problematic because they'd had people there for 30 years that they kind of wanted some fresh blood in. But how big a deal is that for you guys, especially when you're looking at recruiting to res, for some of the clients that you're working with, is that something that is kind of a key driver because of overhead costs or anything like that?
I think retention's always a headline for all businesses. It's important in my business in the service sector because you maintain and you grow and you develop the skills, and those people build relationships, and it's important that that continues. If you keep fracturing those relationships, it becomes transactional, not a relationship. So it's important in our business. But in client business, it's always point of conversation at the start of the attraction and recruitment process, because most businesses want people to grow with them, unless they're bringing in a contract or an interim for specialist services, which is quite strong currently. They do really want people to grow and learn and develop and be part of their family, if you like, in that business, however small or large the business is. And I think the retention factor also helps in a business's inclusivity and diversity strategy in terms of getting that balance and the dynamic of different people. So it's always a headline, it's always a key component for us. And there are good businesses don't suffer from high churn. That's what I would say.
So Richard or Giselle, what kind of things do you do as a business to, why do you think that the Northeast is particularly good at keeping hold of people? Any sort of thoughts of that might be? Richard?
Yeah, well, there's definitely a sense of community. So when I in preparation for this asked the graduates who don't come from here, why did they choose to stay? How much of that was to do with the region, how much was that to do with what we did well? But the two things seem to mesh together in the sense of lots of loose links and some strong links. So of course people come study here because family are here, but also that there's many tech jobs. So in our particular case, there's a strong retention factor that if you're in the city, you're now not isolated from other jobs and that. So I guess smaller regions in us don't quite have that yet. So you've got the growth potential, which is very large as compared to some larger cities, and the jobs just aren't there in any of the smaller cities, I would say. So it's in that perfect place. And when I spoke to the graduates, they could see that as well. So they could see, you know, for the first 5 years of their career, that they could move around a lot, which of course creates the retention challenge. That's it from the city point of view. From our own point of view, frankly, it's not something that is front of mind at the moment, because we're a relatively new business and we're hiring. So it is something that we're conscious that we have to think about. But it's not really a priority, just simply because most people have joined in the last 18 months. So yeah, it's something we certainly need to think about. But the fact that the team building is in the region, I think, has a retentive effect in itself. You know, there's a kind of sense of community in the team, because we can, well, when it's appropriate now, but when we can meet together, we meet as a team. So we have that kind of very, very flexible arrangement, which of course people are looking for. They can work fully from home with us, but then we ask that people are commutable distance from Newcastle, so that as a team we can together. And that of course is a retention tactic, if you like, but it's really just a feel good thing to do. It gives you an actual sense of team. So that's actually probably the challenge that we're thinking about in terms of retention, is how do we emulate what we had before when we could meet frequently, because we don't have that kind of extracurricular, you know, we're not meeting in the pub, we're not doing things together socially. So I think that's our main retention challenge, is how, you know, there's a sense that everyone is in Newcastle, but how do we get that same thing that we would have in Newcastle if we were able to go out? So we're grappling with that one. Who knows how long that will go on? But that's how we're thinking about retention.
Giselle, anything to add to that retention?
I think Therese and Richard have raised some really important points. I think first and foremost for us, we've got to be a good and responsible employer. Our employees, we know, you know, the competition is out there. We do not rest on our laurels. Our employees could choose to go to anybody. So they've really got to want to come to us, and we've got to want to keep them. So it's a relationship of respect, I think, working hard to treat people fairly and offer them a lovely working environment. We're very French in the sense that food always seems to be available, and any tea you could imagine. Celebrate every success, usually with food, and create. Sorry?
And champagne in your fridge, I've seen that.
Yes, that's there too. It gets back to celebrate any success and every success, because whether you're working on a game or you're working on a mental health project, or whether you're organising a company party, everybody's job, you know, involves a degree of success. So it's that being a good employer. When people relocate to us, we're very conscious, whether it's the business with 65% non-Brits or whether it's our development studio, which is still about 30% non-Brits. It's a big step to relocate. So how much support do we give in relocation? Your office is really, really good in helping us there. You've personally been involved in many of the locations. Do we make that metro ticket available easily and subsidised? As you know, Newcastle is 20 or 30 minutes from everywhere, so commuting is easy. And also there's the lifestyle. Money goes further. People can enjoy, you know, if you come out of the Haymarket office and you're in town, you're on Northumberland Street in 30 seconds, whether it's lunch, shopping, or just living your life, it's quite easy. The sense of community that Richard mentioned is very important. People find it easy to integrate here. I think it's that sort of idea that you could approach anybody in the street to ask for directions and it's not a big issue. So I think many of the things which are external and internal, we take seriously, as I'm sure many employers do. Dawn posted an interesting question about saying, is the global marketplace driving up wages? I would say not that we have seen yet, but that may very well be a factor. A lot of employers do engage in salary surveys. It'll be interesting to see how this year goes when we're benching our salaries against other companies around the UK and where that goes to. But that is yet another factor in what employers can do to be responsible in how they deal with their employees.
Yeah, and Therese, have you got anything to add there on the salary levels? Because yeah, we've not seen that you know, that sort of spike yet. We've seen it as we've had, say, government employers coming in, and actually, you know, they have sort of inflated some of the salaries. But actually, you know, we've not seen, we still appear to be very competitive as a city and a region for the salary levels, and that's down to, you know, as well, disposable income seems to be higher here. But Therese, are you seeing anything different?
We are seeing nothing different in that, in terms of, in fact, one thing that we thought might happen, but we haven't seen it yet, is we thought there might be some levelling of salaries that were particularly high in certain sectors pre-pandemic, and then when a lot of people were furloughed, and then reduced in many cases to 80%. We were wondering whether, when it comes out again, whether that levelling level might sit at 80%. But we haven't seen any impact of salaries yet. Salaries are still very competitive to get the right level of talent. It's not, nobody's underpaid in this region by any stretch of the imagination. There's really good value. And when we talk to businesses, that's always part of the conversation, is the salary benchmarked, as Giselle says, whether it's informally or a formal benchmarking structure. So we're not seeing any challenges on that at all currently. What we are seeing is businesses who don't want to lose talent, coming back to your retention point, then re-looking at the overall package of remuneration structures and benefits, because they don't want to lose key people. So that there is often a bit of that going on, but it's certainly not about a salary gradient.
So Angus has just posed a question as well around, you know, what would it take? What would encourage, I suppose, Richard, to actually grow teams more in Newcastle? Richard, what you've already said that you're continuing on a really positive, you know, growth trajectory anyway. What else would happen?
Well, the growth trajectory in some ways is, for us, is fueled by the mid sector reaching the point where it's looking for these high skilled jobs. So that's where we come in as a consultancy, because we have a team of high skilled people. So despite the fact that that's relatively new to the region, as it were, we're still able to find those skills in the region. So it's a fantastic arbitrage for us. So that in fact is a key part of, you know, there's not something special that we're doing there. It's that we've chosen a few years back to use the kind of echo chamber effect of the businesses already here, and combined with the fact that we've chosen to focus on the talent here, we're now reaping the rewards of those two things just being close together, frankly. So, you know, I don't have the same amount of data and timeline as the other panelists to be kind of scientific about it, but anecdotally, it's really being driven up because the clients that we're now onboarding are mid-sized sector who want these jobs, to grow these jobs, and didn't before. So it seems like it's a brand new data set in a way, but certainly on the small amount of trend lines that we can see, they're explosive. Now, I don't expect that we can continue like that. It kind of seems like it would be possible, but right now it's 100% positive. And like I say, most of the business that we're doing and most of the talent that we're doing is here in Newcastle. So I'm a big advocate of it. That is the systemic part of it. It's the largest contributor is the Newcastle factor. So yeah.
The good kind of graph, graphs that we want to see these days. One of the other things as a city, I suppose we do. My work is involved in attracting new companies to the region as well, and we do have quite a great package of support that we're able to offer new companies to the region that are creating, you know, highly skilled jobs. And at the moment, we've got a couple of funding parts which we're able to help to incentivise companies. Now, this is never the driver for a project. You know, the companies do not come here just because we're able to offer them some financial assistance. It can certainly help kind of get some of those projects over the line and show the additionality. You know, when we're looking at, you know, we can award companies in certain funds up to £1 million and beyond in others. So it does help. But one of the key things, and I think it's come up a few times, is this sense of community. So we always joke in the North East that there's kind of 2 degrees of separation. Everybody knows each other. In the majority of times, that's a really, really good thing. But one of the things that companies who I've worked with to bring to the region has been very impressed at the ease in which they are able to speak to, the CEOs and the MDs and the top people in big, medium, small companies, and they're just, and are open to business with them. Whereas, in other cities, they've experienced a bit of a kind of competitive, sort of standoff with them. So, one of the things, particularly Dynamo, who we've organised this webinar, the networks bring these people together, and actually you end up, that you find that the experienced hires, are so much easier to move around. I mean, is that the experience of usual, for example?
Yes, definitely. In fact, Dynamo was something that I was going to mention this morning as well. It's been an incredibly useful network that started, I don't know, maybe 6-7 years ago. It's hard to remember. Again, a very welcoming community of very senior people who come together once a month to discuss how to expand the sector, to deal with the barriers to growth. Often somebody else's experience is extremely useful to you if there are incentive packages coming online, or a new player coming into our region. It's great to be able to meet them and to welcome them to that. It gives opportunities as well to look at several streams, whether it's inclusivity, equality and diversity, whether it's looking at talent pipeline. There are a number of projects that Dynamo can nod to, saying that they were instrumental, whether it's the National Institute for Data, or whether it's the new tech school, North East Futures UTC, focusing just on tech and life sciences students going either into apprentices or apprenticeships or university. Dynamo has the capacity to connect and promote.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point. And actually, I was going to ask about, how all of you have worked alongside sort of all different parts of we call the talent pipeline. So, right from, there's a lot of companies, particularly in the tech sector, that are working from, from school age right the way through to, the formation of the North East Futures University Technical College, which was, as Giselle mentioned, was formed by industry pushing, so it was the likes of Ubisoft and Sage and Accenture and the NHS, who actually pushed government to locate this school in the centre of the city, but right the way up to universities. So Therese, in your experience, your clients, do they find it easy enough, do you think, to get working alongside some of the universities and the schools to be able to build that?
I think the working alongside of the universities is very straightforward, and I think most businesses that we work with have great relationships, and new businesses coming into the region is one of the early things that we talk to them about, getting early access to the universities, all of the regional universities, not just Newcastle City University. And I guess access to schools is probably more business specific rather than a generalisation. I mean, in our business specifically, we get involved in a lot of skills training and skills transformation for new skill sets. So we do a lot of work with our clients on encouraging that in terms of moving out of one sector into another sector to keep the skills going. But I think each business specific experience in
Apologies.
It's normally a dog barking or something on one of these calls, Giselle. But I think certainly most businesses who are looking at pipeline of talent absolutely establish a link with universities for sure, and the colleges. We've got some brilliant colleges in this region. Yeah,
absolutely. And I should have said, actually, there's 5 regional universities within an hour's drive, with around about 110,000 students at last count. In Newcastle, we have 2 city centre universities, just over 50,000. And actually, what's nice about the universities is they all specialise in quite different disciplines as well. So there's a real complementary, kind of piece across the set, and they do actually all work together, genuinely work together really, really well on a number of, in a number of levels. So, and Richard, is there anything from your side in terms of the, the work with universities or the training side?
Yeah, on all fronts really. So we're only at the scale where we're working with the 2 city universities, but I would agree with what you said there, Jen, about the specializations. So we just, in our particular case, I'm talking quite narrowly now, but in our particular case, we care about cybersecurity on the one hand, which Northumbria is particularly strong in, and we've not that Newcastle isn't, but we've just found some very, very talented people there. And then in Newcastle, the computer science and the masters in particular aligns very nicely to cloud computing, which is kind of core to what we do. So in those 2 specific cases, the talent has just been brilliant, and both universities are really collaborative. And just back to the Dynamo point, that's probably been the single best thing that we've invested in, from what we've got for that membership, how proactive Dawn, who looks after our cluster, is. And those introductions have resulted directly in customer acquisition for us very, very rapidly. So yeah, on all of that, it's just very collaborative. I think there was a point made earlier about doing business elsewhere as compared to here, and accessing the executives, the decision makers. So that's definitely true in our case. We really focused on London at the beginning because, Hammer sees everything as a nail, and I was a consultant in London. And so therefore I was looking at trying to do business with companies in London, which of course is impossible to do straight off the bat, which I learned the hard way. Whereas as we transitioned, like I mentioned earlier, to focus on the region first, and then maybe look at the South and wider Europe later, that's really worked for us, that strategy. So that is in large part to do with the amount of support that we've received from Dynamo, now from the universities, which is a more recent thing. But when we speak to those facilitators, and when we speak to the customers, even if they're at an executive level, it's just a collaborative conversation most of the time. So as a small business, that makes it easy. We're not as polished and corporate as businesses who've been established a long time. So the fact that we can behave as we behave in our own company, and yet still have those conversations and find it very collaborative backwards, that just I don't know how you would quantify that, but it just feels easy to do business. It's just enjoyable to do business, and everybody loves dealing with the Northeast partners and customers, basically.
Yeah, that's brilliant, and a worthy shout out to Dawn there as well, who I'm sure you realise is online, given she asked a question. I was also going to ask a quick question. I appreciate we've only got a few minutes left, but I just wanted to ask a question around the sort of work-life balance, which, from a personal experience, we're seeing, it's always been important, but it seems to be even more so at the moment. And we're seeing a lot of people sort of relocating, particularly from the southeast and other areas up to the northeast. I mean, I myself was at university many moons ago in Newcastle. I went away and I came back quite early. A few years later, and in the past sort of 5 to 10 years, I've seen all of my university friends, probably at least a dozen of them, follow me back and all come, and particularly those ones that struck it lucky and bought a house in London, who were able to sell their house and buy a palatial Northumberland or coastal mansion up here. Particularly around raising kids and access to skills and just having that sort of slightly easier lifestyle. Are you, are the other panelists, are you finding that that's a kind of a trend that you're seeing in your work, in your workforce? Are you see more sort of relocation because they want, to embrace, what the Northeast has to offer in that way? Therese, if I start with you.
So in our own workforce, we have a couple like that. Indeed, in the senior team, one of our senior directors relocated from Canada after 10 years working in Asia. He brought it back for the very reason you've just described. He wanted to bring a young family up in a place that was warmer, more comfortable, more engaged. I don't think it was price driven. I think it was just that balance of lifestyle. And for our clients. We often do that, not least in senior appointments. There's a lot of relocation situations. Usually there's a little slither of a connection to the region to come, whether it's, you know, their dad was here or they went to university, as you say, but sometimes it's no connection at all. I mean, we did one recently for a business that I shan't name that landed very successfully in the region, and some of those relocators are international and are settled and enjoying family life here. I think because we live here, I'm born and bred here, you don't see it as much because you're living in it. You take it for granted. You can nip to the coast, you can nip to the countryside, you can have a reasonable house standard, your children can go to good schools. You don't actually think about it until you talk to other people from outside the regions, and you've got that different dynamic and different balance.
Yeah, and Giselle, sort of, we know from working with some of the team that came over from Paris, you know, how unfortunately one of them had to leave, I think against his will. I don't think he was wanting to go back after having spent, was it, you know, 5 years or so here. But are you seeing that that's become easier for you guys to do, obviously, because a lot, as you said, a lot of your staff are global, aren't they?
They are, and we do a lot of international mobilities, and I can't think of any that haven't gone really well, actually. On the case that you mentioned, his replacement also came from Paris, has done the same thing, had another child here, has been absolutely wowed by the maternity services, wowed by the education services and the one-to-one attention that their children get. And yeah, it's a story that's replicated many times. It's an easy city to settle into, that fears are easily allayed in terms of settling other family members. Perhaps with that, what we find is if the rest of the family are happy and settled, it allows an easy transition into work life.
Yeah, we see that. And Richard, from your staff and who you work with, is that kind of, you know, work life balance, you know, a kind of a key driver for them as well?
I think it is very attractive. So same story really. I'm from here, so I don't really see it. But when I talk to the team, as I mentioned, we tried to start in London. So our first employee, our lead engineer, he's from overseas, and he came and established himself in London and didn't like it. And he's now relocated to Newcastle, and he's kind of infected the team with that idea. So we're actually supporting 3 more international hires relocating to Newcastle. So yeah, again, small data size, but certainly, you know, proportionate to what's happening. Nobody is moving out, everybody is moving in. So yeah, and part of the reason for that is cost of living. So it's, you know, you're able to support a family on an income that maybe is relatively low, but the cost of living is, you know, so you end up with so much more cash in your pocket. That's definitely part of it. But again, community, there's lots of established international ethnic communities here, and that's been part of it as well, that people feel like they're home when they're not at home. And I think conversely to London, the feedback was that it's simply not like that it feels very cold and alienated, and so there's a lot more warmth here, and as I mentioned, loose links, and it's easy to establish links as well, as what I'm being told, which is, you know, you can come here and basically make friendships with your neighbours pretty much straight away, which for people from the south has actually been an alien phenomenon. So yeah, all thumbs up from our team. Yeah, everyone's inbound to Newcastle, and loves the region, the friendliness, the cost of living, all of that.
Yeah, people talk to you on the metro here, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. They say hello, good morning, and yeah.
Constantly. So we've got a question from David about sort of city leaders, and, you know, noting that Ben Houchen is ever present at the moment. Giselle, I know you've worked with Nick, with Pat here in Newcastle. You know, how have you found sort of dealing with the, you know, with the city? As you know, has it been able to help you to grow? Is there more that, you know, that could be done, do you think?
I think that Pat and Nick are both really accessible and interested in business growth here. There has never been an occasion where I haven't been able to access them or a member of their team if I need to. I think they're particularly attuned to concerns that we might have, so Brexit has been a big issue for us all. What will migration look like? What will the system look like? How do we get what we need out of it? And how do we communicate that? And Nick and Pat have both been keen to know what those frustrations are and how they can help. It's not just Nick and Pat, it's the rest of the team as well. I think it's a really high quality, accessible team. And if they don't have the answer, they will find out for you. So my experience has been really good. I think, don't turn that on its head again and go back to the Dynamo network. If there isn't somebody within the city council who knows, there's somebody within Dynamo who's experienced the same problem. And I've had many people pointed to me to say, can you help me with this issue? Have you seen it? What are your thoughts on it? How have you dealt with it? And we give that time.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think, one thing that I see is that it is, and it's back to that close-knit accessibility, and, newcomers to the city are, Nick and Pat and others across the region, all of the leaders are really, really keen to get that message out and to get speaking to those businesses. So, yeah, I think that, just because they're not in the press every moment, although they tend to be at the moment, it's not that we're not pushing those messages, and we actually do quite a bit overseas as well, which to people in the region perhaps isn't picked up as much. So
could I just say something else, Jen, quickly? A point that I should have made actually is that Pat and Nick actually run a Newcastle City Leaders programme, which meets every few months, where there's always a topic of interest in a presentation, but a general point to talk about issues of concern and anything that they can do, and certainly stay aware of current concerns of businesses.
Yeah. And in between those sessions, there's lots of discussions, and particularly at the moment there's an awful lot of lobbying going on, particularly in regards to tiers and packages. So that's being worked on a lot. So we've only got a minute left, or a couple of minutes left. So I'd like to sort of go around each of the panelists, if I may, and just ask for a sort of a closing gambit from each of you. So anything that you should have said, or any final words that you want to make for our attendees today. So Therese, if I can start with you, because you're first on my screen, which seems to be the usual.
I'm not sure I have any final wise words, but I guess what I would say is everyone that we have supported in transitioning to the region has had a positive journey and is growing. But we have a wonderful Indigenous base of businesses in this region across all sectors, and there's great diversity there. The guys have already said, Richard and Giselle have talked about the kind of inclusivity, and I think the access to people. It's not because they're a senior leader. I personally have found my own experience of growing up as a senior person in business that genuinely people want other people to do well in this region. Of course there's competition, of course there is, but nobody wants to do anybody down, and everybody's willing to help, and if they can't help you, they'll refer you to somebody else that can. I think the talent pipeline is excellent. I mean, that's what I do for a living. We run a talent business, and it's a joy in terms of some of the talent that we are supporting businesses with now. And I think COVID has driven a transitional exercise in businesses, particularly in tech and digital and e-commerce, that they were perhaps not on that journey before. We've got a great region for tech, for businesses, as Richard and Giselle talk about, but actually many businesses are now tech focused because they've had to be, and they're now there, they're switched on, they're enjoying it. So again, there's a new surge of talent demand in that space too. So that's all for me.
Wonderful, thanks, Therese. And Richard, any sort of final notes from you?
Yeah, I think it's great that there's a big buzz about digital, but it brings the challenge that then with all of that buzz, it's hard to get noticed. But Newcastle has this incubator style feel to it. So, the upside potential is there, as well as the fact that it's easy to do business. So our investments elsewhere have been mixed results. But all of our investments here have been very, very strong returns. So our plan is just to double down on that. We don't see the COVID situation adversely affecting that. If anything, it's accelerated appetite, certainly with the regional businesses. So our future looks pretty bright. And as I say, a lot of that has to do with Newcastle.
Great. And Giselle, anything final from you guys?
I'd like to echo the things that have been said about how easy it is to work with our universities here, strong links with Newcastle, as always, on the games programming. We've got interesting collaborative projects coming up if businesses are interested, looking at safety online and digital citizenship with both Northumbria and Newcastle University. There's interesting ways of mining talent with Newcastle through data science and artificial intelligence master's programs, looking at inclusivity for women, our BAME community and the disabled community as well. And even looking at every business becoming digital. We've developed with Sunderland University a new apprenticeship looking at digital community management, because what business isn't managing a digital community these days, or it's coming. And I'd also like to thank Therese, actually, who I forgot to say was actually instrumental in helping us set up our Consumer Relationship Centre 6 years ago. And that just shows the strength of easy relationships in Newcastle, that Therese is on the same panel as me and helped us build our business.
Welcome.
Brilliant. Oh, well, I think we've demonstrated that 2 degree of separation pretty well today. So it just leaves it to me to say a huge thank you to Therese, to Richard and Giselle today, and to Claire for organising the webinar for us. You know, without Claire, I don't know what many of us would be able to do. So we will follow up if anyone's got any questions. Hopefully we answered most of them that were in the chat. But please don't hesitate to get in touch with us, and we'll look forward to speaking to you all soon, we hope. So look after yourself, and I'm going to go and see what's happened with election results in the last hour, which will be nothing. Okay, brilliant. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.